Everybody, welcome to the show. Around the nation right here, TYT Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. We got an excellent show today, Thursday afternoon show. Lots of stuff to cover, including Bernie Sanders. Is he running for 2020? He just made a couple of interesting steps on that front. Then, of course, we have the Democrats already caving again to Republicans on Dreamers. Oh, that's a disastrous story. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk about Alex Azar, Donald Trump's new Health and Human Services Secretary. We also have Trump's USDA chief as well, and the future of the SNAP program. And then Rick Perry is exporting freedom to other countries. I'm going to tell you how. And then finally, of course, later on, we have a very misogynistic letter from a Republican, surprise, surprise, who says, no, I believe in women's rights. Okay, well, let's read the letter. And by the way, this was posted on social media, so he wanted people to see this. It was in response to a question. We'll see whether or not he actually believes in women's rights. So anyway, hey everybody we're streaming on, of course, YouTube. We're also streaming on Facebook Live, so hello to everybody watching there. If you could please give us a like and share. Share it out to your friends. Sharing is caring. Again, on YouTube and on Facebook. That's where we're streaming. So thank you much for doing that. Of course, I want to give a shout out to the patrons, patreon.com/TYTNation. You help keep us independent and non-corporate sponsored. Also, another way to help the show is you can leave a super chat. So a super chat, it's a way to get your comments read, and also a way for you to help the show by giving a donation. I've used it before. It's actually pretty cool. So, all right. That said, let's roll into the first story. Let's talk about Bernie Sanders. Here comes Bernie Sanders. Well, not quite yet, but you should probably get prepared to feel the burn. According to Politico, Senator Bernie Sanders as recently as Saturday, convened his top political advisors in Washington for a planning meeting that included a discussion on the feasibility and shape of a possible 2020 presidential campaign. This is according to about a half dozen Democrats that were familiar with the gathering, talking to Politico, of course. Now, along with Bernie Sanders, participants in the meeting included Jeff Weaver, that's, of course, Bernie Sanders' former campaign manager, his wife, Jane Sanders, called in on the phone. Also present was Nina Turner. Nina Turner, of course, runs Our Revolution, which is Bernie Sanders' political organization. So they were all there. There were other people there as well from his campaign. So, okay, big gathering, right, on Saturday. So what happened? What did they talk about? Well, one of the topics was, of course, 2020, but it wasn't all about 2020. However, during the meeting, the top-line message the Vermont senator received from all of his different operatives gathered during the government shutdown was basically what they've been telling him all along. Hey, man, if you ran, you would not only be the front runner, right? So you'd be the leading person to actually get the Democratic nomination. And if you actually plan on running, now's the time to do it. So they've been telling him this all along, like, hey, look at the polls. You're the most popular politician in America. Your polls are consistently good against Donald Trump, and they've always been good against Donald Trump, even back in 2016. And we think that you should run. And so, and if you're going to run, do it now. Do it now, do it now, do it now. Get an early start. So, now, of course, all that is true, right? Yes, he would be the front runner. He'd also be the obvious choice, right? Again, he is, I see him, and I think most of the country sees him as a direct rebuke of President Donald Trump, because he is a left-leaning populist with an enormous following. And of course, I did mention he's the most popular politician in America. Polls have consistently confirmed that. And so, look, now, of course, one of the ways the establishment is fighting back against that is just by not including him in the polls. And it's maddening. But look, he's popular not just among Democrats and African Americans, women. He's actually more popular among Democratic voters, African Americans, and women than he is among white men. So all those things about, it's the Bernie bros, he only appeals to white college-educated liberals and dudes, that's not true. He actually has a pretty dedicated following across all different demographics. So, and look, independents, he's very popular with independents, and he's also incredibly popular with, somewhat popular, I should say, even among some Republicans. So, because they see him as uncorrupted, which is true. Now, what was Bernie Sanders' response throughout this? Sanders, according to multiple Democrats, said, quote, "I haven't yet made a decision about 2020, but I still think beating Donald Trump is the most important thing for this country. And I want to be ready if I do decide to run." So he wants to be ready for running for office. And that makes sense. Now, Politico notes that Sanders, in order to do that, regularly speaks with a close group of advisors and periodically brings top allies in to discuss his political maneuvers. Saturday's get-together included planning for the rest of 2018, but also included as well as a specifically slated 2020 component. Now, this, according to Democrats familiar with the session, was scheduled for the one-year anniversary of Trump's inauguration, which happened to also be during the shutdown. Now, part of the discussion included gaming out how the rest of the field might look since 2016's landscape, effectively pitting Sanders against Hillary Clinton. So now that was, they know, a far more straightforward race. Yes, you only have pretty much one other viable opponent, but of course this opponent had the entire establishment behind her. She was the establishment favorite. She was the pick, right? They had coronated her to win, so they had stacked everything in her favor as early as 2014, 2015. Okay, so now this next race is actually going to be far more different because now we're going to see basically a clean slate for the most part, and I'm going to explain that. But what we'll have is likely, so far, Joe Biden, of course, Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, Kirsten Gillibrand, maybe Elizabeth Warren might jump in, and the newest news is John Kerry is also looking at jumping in. Wonderful. So that's quite a big field. Now, that's just some of the possible entries. There could be more. There could be a random New York billionaire that jumps in as well. So we don't know what's going to happen in 2020. It's still pretty far away. Now, Politico also notes, though, that if Sanders were to throw his hat in the ring, that field would likely shape themselves around him. Now, that's very interesting. You know what that means? Most of these candidates are going to start pushing toward the left, especially when it comes to their rhetoric and some of their stated policy positions. Now, that's actually really good, and we've got a couple examples of that. Cory Booker, for one. I mean, Cory Booker, yes, he's your standard Wall Street establishment politician. You know what he's been pushing? The legalization of marijuana nationwide. That's a pretty strong progressive position, and I have to give him some credit for that. Not only that, but look, you had Kamala Harris. Right now, she's getting attacked by Hillary Clinton supporters for co-sponsoring Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All. Look, I'm aware, right? I'm not naive. Of course it's political posturing. Of course they're saying they're getting on board these massively popular programs and ideas because that's where the Democratic Party is going. The Democratic Party is going further and further to the left, and that's actually a good thing. At least the Democratic voting base is going to the left. Some of your leadership, most of your leadership, I should say, at this point is sadly strongly entrenched in their establishment ways. And you're talking people like Nancy Pelosi, Dianne Feinstein. These people are ancient dinosaurs that don't even represent their voters' wishes. I believe it was Dianne Feinstein that didn't even want to fight on the Dreamers. Come on, man. You don't even know your constituency. Now, interestingly enough, there is one person in that field of likely contenders that hasn't actually gone left, and that's Joe Biden. So again, he is the most likely establishment pick. In fact, Joe Biden recently was like talking about millennials, and he said, "Yeah, I have no empathy for you. You think you got it tough? You millennials, you ain't got it tough. Come on, no empathy." Well, he's going to do very, very well with millennials in the primary. Now, that's, of course, considering that millennials are slated to be the biggest voting group or potential voting group in the 2018 and 2020. So not only that, but millennials, a lot of us are pissed and we've been screwed over. And we want somebody that actually wants to represent us and our progressive values. We want somebody who's going to do something about student loan debt. We want somebody to do something about the rising cost of healthcare, Medicare for all. More young people are identifying with socialism and democratic socialism than capitalism. They're in a world of hurt if they're going to run as this centrist, pro-corporatist neoliberal, right? And that's what Joe Biden's going to do. So, nonetheless, Joe Biden, to be fair, he's still pretty popular among Democratic voters. So he and Bernie Sanders are actually very close when it comes to the polling. So we'll see how that, develops going forward. Anyway, there's more. Bernie Sanders is making sure, as I said, that he's ready. Now, according to Politico, Sanders has remained toward the top of the polls, surveying the potential Democratic field without fail after his stunning 2016 bid, and has been working methodically to address major issues that plagued him politically last time, boning up on foreign policy and making nice with a series of party power brokers. He also visited both Iowa and New Hampshire multiple times in 2017, a traditional sign of a possible run. Here comes Bernie Sanders. Feel the burn. Feel the burn. All right. So that said, let me point out how they might try to screw him. Now, for one, I mentioned this earlier. So, look, Bernie Sanders is at the top of the polls, and he consistently polls as the most popular politician in America. So what have some outlets started to do? They just left him out. Oh, no, we're going to poll Oprah. We're going to poll Mark Zuckerberg. We're going to poll all these other people, but we're not going to poll Bernie Sanders. We're going to leave him out. Oh, look at that. Oprah, super popular. Oh, look at that. Joe Biden leading the field. But wait, where's Bernie Sanders? Oh, yeah, we forgot to put him in the poll. You forgot to put the most popular politician in America and the likely frontrunner of the Democratic Party. You forgot to put him in the poll. That's not an accident. It's not like, oh, golly gee, we forgot. We forgot about Bernie. No. This is more of the Bernie blackout. And of course, this happened back in 2016. They're leaving him out on purpose. Now, there's other issues as well. Have we seen a lot of change in the DNC and the Democratic Party since 2016? No, we have not. We still have a DNC and a media establishment that favors insiders, that favors the establishment candidates, people that will, push the status quo, okay? And of course, as far as the rules go, there's still a lot of arcane rules in place that prevent, for example, independents joining into primaries, right? There's still not open primaries in a lot of places. There's still a lot of rules that are preventing people from getting into the primaries. There's registration deadlines and things that are just insane. Like, for example, New York, where you have to register way, way ahead in advance to be able to vote in the primaries. So there are those things. Basically, all the issues that were present in 2016 are basically still there. I mean, we even have super delegates. Yes. Are they reduced? Yes. There's less of them. However, they still exist, and that is a major problem, especially when you end up having such a crowded field. You get a crowded field and you get, Bernie Sanders close to Joe Biden, those super delegates, they might be enough to flip that race. So, and there are other examples of where this could happen. So, super delegates, that is a major problem. Anyway, not only that, but again, establishment media that does have a bias against Bernie Sanders doesn't understand why he speaks for the country, why people, actually like him, why he's so popular. They don't get it. They can't get it through their heads. So they're like, well, look, none of my establishment friends, none of my friends in business and banking like Bernie Sanders. So I guess nobody else likes Bernie Sanders. And so they'll put out these articles, and we'll see it as it gets closer and closer to these races, assuming he runs, of course, just like the Washington Post did with 16 negative articles on Bernie Sanders in 16 hours. If he runs again, of course, we're going to be facing that. But now I think he's preparing for it, and we should be prepared for it as well, because we're definitely going to see that. So those are the issues. So what do we actually need to do? Again, if Bernie Sanders is going to run, then what we need to do as progressives is to make sure that we register as soon as you're able to in your state. And you can find out all that information online, your local state, when and where to register for the primaries, and then check on your registration to make sure it's still there. You don't want to find out, as some people did back in 2016, that their registration was mysteriously changed. So making it so that you can't vote or that you have to cast a provisional ballot, which in a lot of cases doesn't actually count. Not only that, but you should be registered already if you wanted to vote in the midterms. And now, the midterms are hugely, hugely important, especially if you want to have a Congress there that might actually pass Medicare for all and things like a living wage and things like that. But look, make no mistake. As far as I'm concerned, as long as nothing happens in between now and then, and there's still a lot of time. But I think Bernie's going to run. Run, Bernie, run. We need you. Okay. Moving on. Okay. So right now, Democrats and Republicans are in the middle of negotiating a long-term deal to fund the government. Now, the deal signed earlier this week was only a short-term extension of federal funding. Now, I've been on for this quite a bit. In it, Democrats did get an extension of CHIP for about 6 years. That's good, but it's also incredibly popular among both parties, and it was very likely that was going to pass anyway. I mean, traditionally, CHIP funding would go through without any fanfare. It was just a given. It's no longer a given now. This time, Republicans decided, hey, you know what? We're not gonna fund CHIP. Back in September, when they actually had the chance, and of course, Democrats and activists were bringing it up. Hey, why don't you reauthorize CHIP? Why don't you fund CHIP? Yeah, we'll get to it. The only reason that they didn't fund it is so that they could hold it hostage for budget negotiations, which again, we've been doing stopgap measures for funding the government since September. This isn't an accident, okay? Not an accident. So what the Republicans did is that they decided that, you know what we're going to do? We're going to pit sick kids versus DACA recipients. It's a disgusting move, but it's something that we should absolutely expect out of Republicans because we've seen it more before, right? So they planned this in advance. They planned the DACA fight in advance when Donald Trump said, we're just going to send it to Congress, right? They knew what they were doing. They also knew, more importantly, or most importantly, that the Democrats are weak and the Democrats were going to fold. And that's exactly what happened. Now, speaking of folding, we go to today, an article in Politico. The Democrats have just agreed to fold again. They have preemptively folded. Oh, that's amazing. Okay. According to Politico, Senate Democrats announced that they are willing to drop their demand that relief for dreamers be tied to any long-term budget agreement. Now, look, I've been in favor of a clean dream deal, right? A clean dream act. We could do it today. There's 70 to 80% public support. There's no reason we couldn't do it. But of course, Republicans, they don't want to do it. Some of their members, the Freedom Caucus, for example, are filled with monstrous people that don't give a shit about DACA recipients, about dreamers. So, look, if the Democrats actually want to advance anything, yes, then they would have to tie it to a long-term budget deal. But are they willing to do that? No, of course not. Now, the shift, they write, comes in response to a deal struck between Senate leaders on Monday to reopen the government and begin debate on an immigration bill next month. So they're referring to the deal with Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell, you're going to believe Mitch McConnell? Mitch McConnell lies to his own members. That's Suzanne Collins. So he lies to his own caucus, his own members. And what? The Democrats are just going to believe him? Yes, they are that stupid. Look, there is no... I promise I'm going to give you an agreement in good faith. Bullshit. There will be no good faith negotiation. There are no negotiations with Mitch McConnell there in good faith. He is a consummate politician, but he also lacks complete empathy. And this is a guy who's like, my only job, back when Barack Obama was president, is to make Obama one-term president. He's dedicated in doing so. Anyway, and you're going to believe him. So the Democrats, they fell for it, right? Oh, yes, of course, Mitch McConnell. We could trust the honorable gentleman from Kentucky. Well, so here's Dick Durbin, right? Saying just that. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell's procedural concession, he calls it a concession, means we've got a deadline and a process. That's not a concession. Saying, oh, yeah, we'll take it up later. We promise we'll give you a vote. That's not a concession. But no, Democrats, look, I showed you a video yesterday of Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Well, it wasn't yesterday. There's a recent interview with Debbie Wasserman Schultz where she's like, well, we got momentum. You got momentum? No, you didn't get momentum. The Republicans are laughing at you because you're weak and you folded, you capitulated, you rolled over. And they know it. Again, they're laughing at you, right? Now, Durbin continues. He says, that to me is a significant step forward. It's not everything I wanted. That's for sure. But it's a step forward. No. You asked for nothing and you received less than nothing. Less than nothing. Congratulations. What wonderful negotiators you are. Wonderful. You must be very proud. And now, look, you're willing to, on this budget deal, since you're not tying DACA in with a long-term spending plan, well then, you're throwing 800,000 people under the bus. It's gross. But as you're going to see, it actually gets worse than that. Budget negotiators, according to Politico, are expressing optimism that any two-year agreement to lift stiff caps on defense and domestic spending is within reach. Now, why does that sound bad? Defense spending. Negotiators have already agreed to a massive boost in the Pentagon's budget. Multiple sources say that Congress will raise military spending by at least $70 billion above the caps for fiscal 2018 and $80 billion for fiscal year 2019. So not only have the Democrats dropped DACA from any of this deal, right, and they believe Mitch McConnell, but now they're like, oh, we're just going to give away billions of dollars, $70 billion to the military, and then $80 billion next year to the military above the caps. Now, how do you agree with that? What kind of negotiation is this? It's a negotiation brought to you by a corrupt government that works for the defense contractors. Now, what about domestic spending, right? So one of the things that the Democrats were arguing for in the last deal before they capitulated, they said, okay, well, look, we know you want more defense spending. We're cool with that. We'll give the Pentagon more and more money, all the money in the world. It's crazy. They'll fund the Pentagon $70 to $80 billion. They'll agree to that. But when it comes to doing Medicare for all, can't do that. No, we can't afford that. That's pie in the sky. Where are we going to get the money? They've got the money. They just don't want to spend it on regular people. No, they want to spend it on their defense contractor buddies because guess what? They get campaign donations. They get their checks. Anyway, there's more. On the domestic front, right? Democrats are insisting on $60 billion. So wait a minute here. So the demand was parity, right? At first. Now the Democrats are like, you know what? We'll just take 60. We're going to give the military $70 billion, and then the next year $80 billion, but we're going to only take 60. What kind of negotiators are you? You are terrible. Terrible. But wait, there's more. Negotiators are also floating potential changes to mandatory spending, a budgetary gimmick to further dodge the strict gaps on discretionary spending. Now, that could mean that they could pass programs with bipartisan support. Oh, hey, look at that. Oh, okay, maybe there's something good in here, right? What kind of programs are they going to try to get with these budget gimmicks, right, to bypass these caps on spending? VA Choice, which is private sector healthcare program for veterans. This gimmick would move that to the mandatory side of the budget for good. So there's mandatory spending, there's discretionary spending, right? So what they're doing is they're saying, well, we're just going to go and give more private money for a privatized VA program. You know, instead of funding the VA properly, we're going to instead give more money towards this private VA, this private sector health program. So, hey, look, our corporations got to make money somehow. More public money going to more private corporations. Wonderful. Now, what about DACA, right? Again, DACA is not part of this agreement, but there is a separate negotiation going on. Well, the reason that they should tie this in is the fact that without DACA, they lose leverage. Now, here's the thing, right? Look, Republicans have already come up with their own plan on DACA. Again, 70 to 80% approval among Americans, right? So here's the Republican plan. They want $30 billion for a border wall, right? So that's going to be in any deal that they go with. Okay, so that sucks, but Democrats, again, don't know how to negotiate. So immediately, like, we're going to give you money for the wall. Now, Chuck Schumer yesterday, he said, well, you know what? That $25 billion we already offered you for the wall, and we're going to take that back. It's going to come back on the table, and likely it's going to be the full $30 billion. Watch. Now, on DACA, they proposed, in exchange for that, a 3-year extension to DACA recipients that would be reauthorized by Congress. It would also include no chain immigration. You can't sponsor family members, and, of course, an end to the lottery system. So this is a deeply right-wing draconian immigration plan. So they're going to bring that plan, and the Democrats are going to bring some weak sauce program or weak sauce offer to the Republicans. And so what are we going to get? We're probably going to get a very weak DACA that has to get reauthorized, which means more partisan fights instead of a permanent fix. No pathway to citizenship for these DACA recipients, and in return, we're going to have to give them more of their draconian measures. That includes funding for the border wall and more border security, on and on and on. It's going to end up in the deal. Why? It's because Democrats are paid to lose. Yes, they'll get some small concession, and when they do, they'll call it mission accomplished. And for all the other stuff, they'll say, what can they do? The Republicans had us over a barrel. We don't know how to negotiate because we suck at it. Until the next fight, of course, over the budget, which, of course, in which the Republicans will, again, ask for more and receive more and more. Why? It's because the Democrats have no spine. They will cave again and again and again because it's what they're paid to do. They are controlled opposition. Look, if you think Chuck Schumer, if you think Nancy Pelosi and all these Democrats actually care about the Dreamers, no, they don't. And they've shown that by dropping this. Their only bit of leverage that they actually had in these negotiations. Look, we need real progressives. We need people who are actually willing to fight for their what they believe in. And it's pretty clear that these establishment Democrats don't believe in anything except for the money. So we got to vote them out. We got to primary the hell out of them and actually vote in real progressives who are really going to fight for, you know, our priorities, American priorities. Okay. I'm going to take a break here real quick. We'll be back. We've got a lot more stories here, including Democrats, again, helping Donald Trump, of course. So we'll get to that after we come back. Stay right here, Around the Nation. Hey everybody, welcome back. Around the Nation right here, TOT Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. If you haven't already, please give us a like and a share, both on Facebook and on YouTube. Thanks everybody again for watching. All right, more stories, frustrating stories about the Democrats. All right. These guys. So Alex Azar is the Trump administration's pick for the next Secretary of Health and Human Services. Now, their last one didn't exactly work out very well. I believe that was Tom Price. Had to resign amid a little bit of a spending scandal, but again, that's got nothing to do with the story. Now, Azar, he's got a little bit of a different problem. See, Azar used to work for a big company called Eli Lilly. Now, this is a giant pharmaceutical company that recently got into a little bit of trouble. Now, one of the things that Eli Lilly actually does is that it provides insulin medication. That is a fairly important medication to millions of people who, you know, deal with diabetes. It's kind of something that you need to live. Okay, fairly important, right? So while Azar was working at Eli Lilly, he happened to preside over some price increases. Now, last November, Politico reported that Eli Lilly had jacked up its price of Humulin RU500. Now, again, this is an insulin drug, and they had jacked up the price by 325% between the years of 2010 and 2015. Now, Azar was president between 2012 and 2015. So, look, during the 3 years that he was there, he had presided over these gigantic price hikes and actually didn't do anything about it. In fact, he thought it was fantastic. In fact, Azar was a crusader against ideas that would make drug prices more competitive. They said Azar spoken out against rules known as comparative effectiveness research, used to determine which drugs are most cost-effective for treating patients with certain diseases. Now, he argued, Azar did, that, hey, look, we should make all drugs available, all options available, because you never know when different patients might need different medicines. Now, look, to somebody who doesn't know a whole lot about the field, that might sound reasonable, right? Now, the problem is, if they make all the drugs available for any condition, then the government of course, the patients themselves have little leverage to negotiate lower drug prices with the industry. It's not like we have a lot of choice in being able to do that anyway. Now, not only that, but Azar also served on the board of a company that specializes in helping public and private sector healthcare providers find loopholes in order to exploit, in order to avoid paying health benefits to people with insurance. So, yeah, that's a bit disastrous, right? In fact, this was TYT investigative reporter Ken Klippenstein, who reported that Azar served on the board of the Texas-based HMS Holdings Corporation between October of 2016 and November of 2017. And of course, while he was there, he made sure to help this company find loopholes to not have to pay healthcare benefits. Wonderful. So this guy has a history of working against the consumer. Well, guess what? He was just confirmed by the Senate. He is now the new Health and Human Services Secretary. According to roll call, Azar was confirmed with a 55 to 43 vote. Now, wait a minute here. Now, Republicans, they have a simple majority. Now, there are two Republicans that happen to be missing. There's Republican Bob Corker, who I don't know where he is, and Arizona Senator, I can't think of his name. It's not Jeff Flake. It is John McCain. So John McCain, of course, has got brain cancer, so he's getting treatment. He's having some problems with it, so he's not able to vote. So that would give the Republicans 49. But wait, how did they get 55? Well, it turns out that a bunch of Democrats decided, you know what, we're going to go with Trump's pick. And actually, they got the help of 6 Democrats, so my math might be a little off. They're Senators Tom Carper, Chris Coons, Joe Donnelly, Heidi Heitkamp, Doug Jones, and Joe Manchin. Republican Rand Paul was a lone vote against Azar, and of course, Corker and McCain did not vote. So that means if those 6 Democrats, and Senator Angus King, by the way, who was also on that list, voted no, then we would not have Alex Azar. His confirmation would have failed. Not even Mike Pence could have broken that tie. So that means the corporate Democrats just confirmed a price gouger to be our new head of Health and Human Services. I wonder who he's going to look out for. I wonder who he's going to serve now in this position. So this is what frustrates me, because on all of these votes, these very, very important votes and these very important confirmations, which basically shape what the agency is actually going to look like in the future, we have these names that pop up over and over again that side with the Republicans, specifically Joe Manchin and Heidi Heitkamp. They're always the ones. And Joe Donnelly's on some, and you've also got, Chris Coons, Tom Carper, sometimes on those, sometimes not, but always Joe Manchin, Heidi Heitkamp. I'm getting tired of those people. You know what those people have, by the way? They got primaries. Now, if you're as tired of these corporate hacks voting with the Republicans and confirming industry picks for important decisions or positions, well, then I've got a solution. Primaries. Vote in the primaries. Look, there's actually a couple of really good progressives that are running against these two candidates. For one, Joe Manchin in West Virginia, he's being primaried by Paula Jean Swearengin, a wonderful progressive. And Heidi Heitkamp is also being primaried by Dustin Peyer in North Dakota. So check those people out. Get out there, support those people. I interviewed Dustin on the show. He's a wonderful guy, and he's serious about actually changing the system. So, and look, both of those candidates, they don't take corporate money. And that's one of the most important qualifications, other than being progressive on issues, is not taking corporate money from these, giant companies and these lobbyists. So, look, if you find those people out, like, go look them up, donate, volunteer, phone bank, and most importantly, get out there and vote. We can actually take the Senate from these corporate apologist Democrats. And then when we do, we can clobber the Republicans, because it turns out that most of America is actually far more progressive than a lot of these idiot establishment, both Republicans and Democrats, think. So, look, if we're going to do that, though, you got to get out there and vote. You got to get out there and get registered. Midterms are coming. There's a lot of important primaries coming our way, and there's a lot of excellent candidates. This year is, I think, different than any other year that we've had before, because there has been a wave, not just of Democrats, but of actual progressives that have joined these races, that are running on things like Medicare for all, that are running on things like a living wage, and that are not taking a dime of corporate money. We have one chance, and we have one chance only. We can make this a blue wave, and not just a blue wave, but a real progressive wave. So let's get out there. Let's get involved, and let's get real progressives. Okay. Moving on. Speaking of shitty nominees, we have more. Okay. So if you are one of the millions of America, So if you're one of the millions of people in America that are struggling to feed yourselves or your family, well, Trump's USDA chief has a message for you. Get a job, you bum. On Wednesday, Sonny Perdue, who is Trump's USDA chief, released an outline for what he wants to do for the next farm bill. And boy, it is not good. Now, the Farm Bill, among other things, of course, while subsidizing agriculture, also authorizes spending on the SNAP program. Now, SNAP, of course, is known as food stamps. So around 41 million Americans right now currently receive food stamps. A lot of them are children, as I'm going to break down, disabled adults, and, of course, working people. Now, the numbers on that, of course, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, among SNAP households with at least one working-age non-disabled adult, more than half of those work while receiving SNAP benefits. So again, among these households, most people work. At least half, or more than half of them. Now, despite that, Perdue, as you're going to see in this letter, is going to peddle the false claim that most people on food stamps don't work and therefore are lazy and don't actually deserve the benefits. He said it's evident that there are able-bodied adults without dependents who are on the food stamp program, who we believe it is in their best interest and their family's best interest to move into an independent lifestyle. So, translation, get those lazy bums off our welfare. That's what that means. Now, he also said, during the last downturn, it became a lifestyle for some people. We don't want it to become permanent. Well, number one, nobody wants to become permanent, right? Especially the people on it. Most people that are on food stamps are, for one, they're not on food stamps all the time. You can look up the data on that one. I believe it was the Center for Budget Policy and Priorities had a lot of great information on that, how long people actually stay in the food stamp program. And it's actually not long because it is mostly temporary. People lose their job. They might have to get on food stamps for a few months. And then, oh, look, they find another job and they get off the program. This is usually what happens. So, but look, what he's saying is, after the downturn, yes, some people did get some help and maybe they needed it, but now they've made it a lifestyle. Well, look, here's the thing. A lot of people still haven't recovered fully since the last downturn. Yes, jobs have come back. Employment is actually up. That's wonderful. Problem is, what jobs have came back? It's not your factory jobs that went away that have come back. No. What's actually here, what's being created more often is are jobs that are low skill, low wage. These are minimum wage jobs. Look, even some of the factory jobs that have come back start you out at a lower wage than you had before. So, the people that used to have a middle-class lifestyle or used to be able to live off a factory salary, they can no longer do so. And yet they work, and they work 30, 40 hours a week, if they're able to, at these jobs that are minimum wage jobs. And so, of course, they have to get on welfare, right? Of course, they have to get on food stamps. Those are the people, again, that work at Walmart, that work at McDonald's, all these different fast food restaurants, and they still don't make enough to survive. So that's the problem. And with wages being so low, of course, some families do calculate that maybe they're better off financially by turning down a slightly higher paying job. Now, that sucks. You actually want to get people out there, you want to get them out to work. But if the job pays marginally better and you lose your food stamp benefits, which is an extra, $200, $300 a month, I think for an average family, well, that's a lot of money you're giving up. So that's a big problem. Now, that doesn't mean that we should take away food stamps or that they're too generous. No. Look, I've been on the program before when I was younger. So I used to remember what the booklets looked like. No, what this means, instead of taking it away, we should actually boost pay. We should actually, get a living wage. Look, the amount of money spent on food stamps and the amount of people on food stamps would be drastically reduced if we had a living wage. If there were good paying jobs out there that people were able to do. Now, look, there'll always be a need for the SNAP program, and it's a good program, and it's actually an incredibly efficient program. But, look, if we actually help people, the millions of people, by ensuring that they actually get to the point of where they can actually survive without government help by having these good-paying jobs, well, then we wouldn't have to spend so much, right? Now, are Republicans going to go that way? Of course not. Purdue suggests that the next farm bill should, quote, support work as the pathway to self-sufficiency, well-being, and economic mobility for individuals and families receiving the SNAP program. That sounds good, but what does that actually mean? It means cuts in the program without anything additional, without actually making sure that we have a living wage, without actually making sure that people have opportunity. They're not going to do anything about that. They're just going to give more corporations or more tax cuts to corporations. We just handed $1.5 trillion to the wealthiest corporations in the United States. Yes, some did some minor increases in wages. Hey, look, that's good, right? Good when they do wage increases, but a lot of the bigger ones, the ones that will benefit the most, what have they actually done? They've actually cut jobs, for one, after getting gigantic tax cuts, and they gave bonuses, which, again, are nice, but they're not as effective as wage increases. And actually, those bonuses make up a very, very small amount of what they would be spending. So it's actually an incredibly small amount. So when you have a company that makes billions of dollars a year and you have a one-time bonus that equals about $140 to $300 million, that's a very small amount. Sure, it's helpful to the workers as a one-time bonus, but what would actually help them and actually get these people out of poverty? Because we talk about Walmart, right? And Walmart's one of the ones that happens to be giving out bonuses. If you've been there for 20 years, you get $1,000. That's nice. But what would actually help those workers far more is if you gave them a living wage. So, but as far as what the Republicans are going to do for the SNAP program, they want to shrink eligibility. They want to cut benefits. And, of course, they also want to add work requirements to it. Now, Purdue said on Wednesday that tightened work requirements that push able-bodied adults into jobs or job training programs could be one way to save money on a new agriculture law. But of course, according to a recent USDA report, the food stamp program increasingly serves the working poor. Among SNAP age or working age SNAP recipients, 57% either work or are seeking employment, and 22% are disabled. So you have a large amount of people who are disabled, a large amount of people who are working, and the rest are kids. And Republicans, of course, want to cut that. You know why? It's because they can't help themselves. I think it's pretty obvious from not only from their rhetoric and their policy positions, that they have a contempt for the working poor. They have a contempt for regular people. They have a contempt for poor people. And they love corporations. And they show it every single day. Why anyone would vote for Republicans, I still can't understand. Okay. We have a couple more stories here. Let's go to Rick Perry. Freedom. Okay. So now Secretary of Energy Rick Perry is at Davos along with President Trump. Wonderful. Now, while he's at Davos, he's going to talk about how awesome oil and gas are and how America isn't just exporting fossil fuels. We're exporting freedom. Watch.
In 2005, we were beside ourselves, if you will, and behind. Other places were where the oil and gas was coming from. You know, we had found it all. Peak oil. We heard all of those stories. And then, you know, by the grace of God and some technology and a guy by the name of George Mitchell from Texas, hydraulic fracturing came into play in a really big way, and we were able to go into those tight shell formations and develop that, which is now creating an absolute revolution in the oil and gas industry and completely changing the geopolitical dynamics in the world, with America being at the forefront. We are now the #1 oil and gas producing nation on the face of the earth. I mean, who would have thought that a decade ago, that would have been true? But it puts us in a very unique place. And here's what I try to share with all of our allies and for all of the audience here at Davos, is that the United States is not just exporting energy. We're exporting freedom. We're exporting to our allies in Europe the opportunity to truly have a choice of where do you buy your energy from. That's freedom. And that kind of freedom is priceless.
I'm sorry. Did he say technology? I heard that. I'm like, wait a minute. Is that what he said? I don't know, man. Again, we're dealing with Rick Perry. But hey, guys, you know all that climate change that's going on? That's a side effect of all the freedom that we're exporting to the world. Freedom. So what's funny is that, okay, he talked about choices. You got choice. America, we're exporting that freedom, and you got choice now. Well, it's funny that he talks about that, because in America, Republicans like him are making sure that we actually don't have a choice. Now, I love one of the talking points that comes from the right. It's like, yeah, you get all your energy. You get it from coal and oil that comes into your home. What are you going to do? You're going to shut off all your lights? You're going to not use energy anymore? How's that an argument? For one, we don't have choice. See, most of us would, if we had a choice, we would say, okay, let's get our energy from solar. Okay, let's get our energy that supplies the grid from wind, right? Let's get it from some of these renewable sources, right? If we had a choice, and look, some of us do, but some of us don't. Some of us might not have enough money to buy solar panels and fit them onto their house. They are expensive, and sometimes it's not an option for people. Okay, but look, those people, they don't have a choice. They don't have a choice in where they choose their energy, and what their power plant, their local power plant, or power company, where they get their energy mix. So it's sort of a funny thing to point out how he's talking about choice and freedom where a lot of us don't get choice and freedom. But anyway, now, whenever we do try to have some choice in our energy supply, Republicans will block it. Donald Trump just slapped a 30% tariff on solar panels, solar cells coming in from China. I know it's going to protect American jobs. Actually, it's going to lose about 28,000 American jobs, somewhere around there. I believe I read that and did a story on that a few days ago. I'll have to check the numbers to be 100% sure. There's going to be a lot of jobs that we're going to end up losing because guess what? Most of the solar industry here in America is not manufacturing. About 14% of the total workforce in the solar industry in America is actually manufacturing. The rest comes from installation. You raise the price on solar panels, you know what's going to happen? You're going to end up losing those installer jobs. So and it's sad because solar is actually the fastest growing industry in America. Not anymore. So he just kind of fucked us on that one. But anyway, no, the Republicans do everything they can to block it because they're not interested in energy freedom. They're not interested in energy choice. What they are interested in is all those checks from the oil and gas industry. But there's more. So he's going to answer another question.
How would you characterize the supply that will be coming from the U.S. onto the global market?
You know, I'm not sure anything since World War II has been any more dynamic, from my perspective, than the shift in energy supply, energy control, if you will. And again, the United States isn't about controlling a country with this energy. It's about literally freeing up our allies around the world, letting them know that we're going to be there for them. There's no strings attached when you buy American LNG.
Yeah.
So that's world changing.
Oh, it's world changing, all right. You know what's also changing? Climate. But okay. Hey, man, look, we're just freeing up our allies to buy our corporations' oil and natural gas. What? Freedom! Freedom! We love freedom here. Look, that sounds comical, but actually, that has been Rick Perry's goal from the beginning. Look, the whole point of Trump putting in Rick Perry, and the whole reason that Rick Perry actually accepted this job in the first place, is because he thought he was going to be an ambassador for oil and gas companies. He believed that that was his only job. In fact, the New York Times wrote last year that Perry, quote, believed he was taking on a role as a global ambassador for the American oil and gas industry he had long championed in his home state. So, yeah, he didn't know. Like, one of the stories that I remember doing last year is the fact that Rick Perry, he didn't know that he had to actually deal with nuclear weapons. Now, look, that's a scary thought. Rick Perry, nuclear weapons. Another scary thought is Donald Trump, nuclear weapons. But that's the world we live in. But as far as him championing oil and gas, it's exactly what he's doing here. He's saying, oh, freedom, freedom. We have the freedom to export oil everywhere. Look, and he's largely being successful, at least in the United States. Now, you mentioned that the United States actually is now a leading producer of oil and natural gas, fossil fuels. In fact, our production has reached a record high level in 2018, and will set another record in 2019. You know what other records we're also setting? Heat records. How hot the globe is. And it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. Look, what we should be doing, of course, is we should be pushing for renewable energy. Climate change is an enormous threat. But, of course, the Republicans, Donald Trump, Rick Perry, the rest of the Republicans, they don't want to see it. They don't want to hear about it. They don't care about it. All they care about is getting paid from their donors. And here's the thing, right? They have been bought off by solar companies. They don't have the money for that. Again, solar companies, fastest growing job creator in the country, even has more jobs than coal. But what are they going to do? They're going to try to prop up the coal industry. Rick Perry tried that. He got rejected. Thank goodness he got rejected. But that's what they're trying to do. That's what they're trying to do. Amazing, right? Talking about how oil and gas, how being able to sell it, that's freedom. We're exporting freedom. But solar panels, they're not freedom. No, we got to limit those. And look, by the way, he talks about our allies in Europe especially, right? A lot of European countries are actually working on expanding their renewable energy capacity. They're actually looking to switch their grids over. In fact, there's a recent agreement here that said that by 2020, all EU countries will have the goal of having at least 20% of their power come from renewable sources. Now, 20% across all of Europe, that's pretty significant, and that will lead to a significant reduction in emissions. Now, by 2030, they want to have a goal of 27% all across all European countries. However, there are European countries that are actually way ahead of that curve. Let me give you an example here. In 2015, the amount of energy consumed from renewable energy sources in Sweden was over 50%. Over half of their entire power consumption came from renewable energy sources. In Finland, you've got 39% of all energy consumption from renewable energy, 30.9 in Norway, on and on and on, and it keeps going down, right? So my point is, by bringing up those numbers, is that they're not going to want American oil and gas. They're saying, hey, America, we don't need your stinking freedom. We don't need your stinking oil or your gas. We've got our own energy sources, and we're working to get our energy sources to be completely renewable. There's the future, right? And unfortunately, with the Trump administration, we are going backwards on the issue of energy, and we're going backwards, especially on the issue of climate change. We can't just keep burning fossil fuels without any regard of what we're actually doing to the planet. Because look, to bring it on terms that Rick Perry might actually understand, freedom doesn't mean a damn thing if you can't actually survive on the planet that you're living on. Okay. One more. You're going to love this one. Now, a Republican candidate in Missouri was recently asked what he believed about women's rights, whether or not he supported it. His answer, fairly interesting. So he said on a public Facebook post, he printed his response, scanned it and all that stuff, and said that, look, but you know, I believe in women's rights. I believe in all that stuff. But I have this deal with my girlfriend where I want to come home to a home-cooked dinner every night at 6 o'clock. One that she fixes, and one that I expect one day to have daughters learn to fix after they become traditional homemakers and family wives. Think Norman Rockwell here, and Gloria Steinem be damned. So, now that's the first part. It gets far more interesting. But first, like, hey, look, if you want your girlfriend to make dinner, and she actually wants to make dinner for you, well, that's different, right? Then you're coming to a mutual agreement, and she says, of course, yeah, that's what I like doing. I want to have that done. You work hard, I work hard, and I'm going to take care of you when you come home. That's a perfectly fine arrangement if that's what you want to do in your personal life. Let me give you an example. Look, I used to work third shifts, right? And my wife would have coffee waiting for me in the morning when I come home. That was lovely. I appreciated it a lot. She didn't have to do it, but great, wonderful. I never demanded that, and that's the difference here, right? I don't expect that. I don't demand that. This person, a little bit different, right? So that said, here's where he gets into even more crazy town. He says, I don't buy into radical feminism's crazed definition of modern womanhood, and I never did. They made it up to suit their own nasty, snake-filled heads. Okay, wow, okay, way to go off the rails, right? For one, what do you mean, feminism's crazed definition of modern womanhood? What definition? Like, what are you referring to? There's a lot of different definitions. So, like, okay, look, I want women to make decisions about their own career, right? Make their own decisions. If you want to stay home, fine. If you're able to stay home, fine. Okay. Now, look, if you want to go out and work, awesome, right? And I believe that you should get paid the same as a man for doing the same job. Those are pretty simple beliefs, right? Now, is it crazy? Maybe. To him, that is. But look, I believe that you should have the same opportunities for advancement at the workplace as a man does. That is equality, right? That is true equality. And to me, that doesn't seem radical. And look, even he admits that, yes, modern women can be anything they want. Okay, look, if you agree with that, great. Let's remove the barriers to that because, look, despite the progress that women have made in the last century and throughout the decades, they're still behind men in some areas. Now, look, there are some areas where men have fallen behind women, areas when it comes to custody and things like that, and we should definitely look into that, right? Because there are women that might be unfit parents that end up getting custody of the kids because, hey, it's the mother. It's the mother. Mother has more rights than the man. I don't agree with that, right? I actually do agree with real gender parity, right? And so, look, there are issues where we need to raise women up to parity, and there are other issues where men need to be raised up to parity. And when it comes to parenting and, that kind of stuff. So, but that's not what he's talking about. He continues. I do want daughters to have their own intelligence, dignity, workspace, and their own degrees. Okay, wonderful. Again, agree with that, right? He says, however, I want them to build home-based enterprises and live in homes with shared with good husbands. Oh, but what if they're not interested in doing a home-based business? And look, home-based enterprise, that doesn't necessarily mean business. What does that mean to me? That sounds like he's saying women should stay home and be the homemaker. And that's it. And live in a good home shared with a good husband. But what if you don't want to get married? Well, he has an answer to that. He said, quote, I don't want them to grow up into career-obsessed banshees who forego home life and the happiness of family to become nail-biting, manophobic, hell-bent feminist she-devils who shriek from the tops of 1,000 tall buildings they think, and I'm saying this verbatim, they could have leaped over in a single bound had men not suppressing them. It's just nuts. It always was. And there, off the rails we go. Train wreck. It's nuts. It's nuts. It's always nuts. No, you're nuts. Again, crazy. Now, he also adds, after all of that, right? And that is quite the run-on sentence rant. He adds that, I support women's rights. I just don't support the kind that is oppressed natural womanhood. What do you mean? Which kind? What are you talking about? Like, what is natural womanhood to you? Look, I don't even think he knows, right? I think to him, natural womanhood is, hey, like my wife does the dishes, she does my laundry, she folds my underwear, and she makes me dinner at 6 every night. That's natural womanhood. Well, that's not how it works. Turns out, it's, again, traditional gender roles, right? Look, I think in a family, if a woman wants to take a role as a caretaker, that's absolutely fine. If a man wants to take a role as a caretaker, that's also absolutely fine. Now, in my household, we split things 50-50, right? We split the bills, and we split the housework, right? I don't mind folding a pair of underwear. That's my underwear. I'll take care of it. It's my stuff, right? So I don't have a problem with that. Not every household works that way. Other households work differently. I understand that. But the element that's important to me is whether you choose to be in that type of relationship and choose to do that type of delegation. Not because you're forced into it by old, gender roles, right? And that's my whole problem here, right? I think feminism, to me, the kind of feminism I believe in, is the ability of women to make their own choices over their own bodies and their own lifestyles and their own careers, and to have the same kind of opportunities as men. That's what I believe in, right? Greater gender parity, women being treated equally and having the same opportunities. That's feminism to me, right? And you can call it whatever you want. And I understand that there's some, you know, people that disagree with the term. That's fine. Do, you know, call it whatever you want. But that's what I believe in. And if you don't like that, then I guess you can either find a woman that does agree with you, because they do exist, right? Or failing to learn that, well, learn how to cook your own goddamn dinner. Because you're going to be alone for a very long time. Okay. That's it. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for going around the nation here with me today. Appreciate you guys. If you haven't already, please leave us a like and a share. If you haven't already, check out our videos that get posted up every day, starting at 5 p.m. Eastern. So go check out those videos in the channel. If you want to see more, please subscribe to the channel. TYT Nation. You want to support us? Awesome. Go to patreon.com/TYT Nation, and you can support us there. Keep us independent and non-corporate sponsored. All right. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. So make sure to join us here for another live stream, Facebook and YouTube. We stream on both. So check us out. All right. Love you guys. Remember, change begins with you. Good night, TYT Nation. We'll see y'all tomorrow.